Just take that on my account, please.
Alright. What's up, mate?
Don't ask. Morning.
Thank you very much for doing that cutting the other day, by the way.
Ah, no problem. Good evening and welcome to the channel. If you don't subscribe, then please hit that subscribe button. Today's video, we are in my workshop at Churston Golf Club and we're tinkering again. So my existing wedge is an SM7 Vokey wedge. It's the M grind, so it's the medium grind. It's got 8 degrees of bounce and it's got 58 degrees of loft. And I've decided that I need more bounce on my wedge. And this is what we're changing it for. It's a Cleveland Zip Core. It's the CB X4 version. It's 58 degrees, so it's exactly the same as my Vokey, but the important difference is it's got 12 degrees of bounce. We've explained bounce before, and it's the sole plate or the bottom of the club that we're most concerned with when we talk about bounce. Bounce basically is this angle between the back perimeter of the golf club or back edge to the front edge, and this area we're always told that bounce is our friend. This probably isn't going to work. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take the shaft out of the Cleveland wedge. It's just a bog standard KBS high rev 2.0 shaft in a steel, standard length, and I'm replacing it with my KBS 130 rainbow shaft, which is an extra stiff, so it's a lot heavier, a lot stiffer, and a lot brighter in colour. I'm also not a massive fan of big ferrules, and this one is particularly large. It's probably like a good inch and a half in length. It's also got a couple of white bands around it and it's massive. So I'm going to remove that and replace it with a much smaller, sort of less visual ferrule. So the first job to do once we've removed all the packaging is to actually remove the shaft. The beauty of this is I can actually reuse the shaft and grip at a later date. So we'll possibly get a new wedge in the bag, but we will definitely get a video because you'll be watching it right now. So the first job is to heat around this area to try and help us remove the glue, which is obviously joining the shaft to the club head. Try not to burn the ferrule too much. We're not going to reuse that, but we don't really want any sort of burning plastic or burning rubber. It's not particularly good for the old lungs. Holding the camera and doing this at the same time, and they say men can't multitask, so just going to heat this area maybe a couple of minutes. You've obviously got to be more careful when using graphite. You can split or splinter graphite. Steel is more robust, so just apply the heat, and we're just going to turn that off a second. Just going to grab a cloth because it is quite hot and just twist the club head off, and you can see it coming off quite nicely. There you go, and that's one club head and shaft removed. Just be very careful with that club head and also the bottom of the shaft, because it will still be quite hot. I've also saved the ferrule, so if we do need to reuse that, then there's no damage to that, and it won't take any prep. It will literally just be remove it and then you can put it back onto the club. I'll keep that club exactly the same positions. Then if it doesn't work, we can put it back exactly the way when we purchased it and just sell it on at a small loss. So I'm going to repeat the process with my existing wedge. I'm going to remove the shaft from the head again. So I'm going to put that shaft into the Cleveland club head. Just a side point, people have asked me where I got this shaft from. I got it from Nick at Sub 70. He had a batch of them that he was putting in some of his own wedges, and he just asked me if I'd like a couple of the shafts. So I've actually got sort of 3 of the shafts. I really like the shaft. It's really stable, it's really stiff, and it's really heavy. Don't think you can get it from any UK companies. I might be wrong, there might be some that are exporting it in, but it's called KBS Rainbow Shaft for those that do actually want to look the shaft up and find a bit more information, or maybe even make a purchase. But I think it's American based company, the KBS, that you can get it from. Might have to pay some import tax. I'm not really sure how that works, but maybe do a little bit of research. But that's the shaft taken out of my Vokey wedge. I did do a little bit of research to make sure that the tip end would actually fit into the Cleveland head, These tips and the bottom of the shaft do vary. You get tapered and parallel shafts, so a tapered shaft will obviously get thicker from top to bottom, so very thin at the bottom, thick at the top, and as it exactly as it sounds, it tapers up as it goes up the shaft. Parallel shaft basically is when you have a step on the shaft, and the first sort of 4 or 5 inches to the first step, I don't know if you can see the step there, will be exactly the same width all the way along, and that's called a parallel shaft. This shaft is tapered. I know that because you can almost see it visually by your eye. And if you give me a minute, I'll just grab I've got like a shaft measurer, I guess. Measurer, is that the right word? No, I've got like a shaft, I don't know what it's called. Or you can do this. So what I'm doing here is I've got the vise, I've tightened it, so the very sort of edge, or the first sort of, I guess, couple of centimetres will go into the vise. Then what I'll do is I'll try and roll it through the vise, and you'll see that it stops here. So that is very much a tapered shaft. You can actually see that physically anyway. You probably can't pick it up on camera, but it's definitely thicker sort of here at this region rather than at the very tip. Just remembered, I forgot to do the next stage, which is basically just to make sure, I'm pretty sure it's going to fit, but what we do, we haven't even cleaned it out yet, we haven't cleaned out the tip, we're actually inside the head, that's still got some existing glue in there, so I'm just going to pop it on and just see if I can work it in there and see how far it goes down, and that's good. I'm pretty confident that once we clean that out, that it'll be even better fit. Can't get it off now. Oh, yeah. So I won't bore you with showing you how I've cleaned it out. I've used a bit of acetone, stuck that down there, a little bit of wire wool, and also I've stuck a drill piece in the vise and then just turned it round to remove any excess glue that's stuck to the head. Next stage is to prep this area here, which is going to hopefully be nice and abrasive, and then the glue will stick to it, which will also help and maintain that shaft staying in that head. So just grab a file and then just roughen up the very bottom surface. Always be careful here, we've mentioned in the past, but don't go too far up the shaft. You've got to remember that the shaft's going to cover quite a bit of that, and then you've got the ferrule as well additionally over the top, so you don't really want to have any of this visible. I've seen a few bad repairs where people have gone too far up the shaft, and then you can actually see where they've actually roughened up the very tip, and it just doesn't look a good finish. We always want a nice finish. Grab my box of ferrules, so I've got to find a ferrule that fits, and also we want to get the right size. I've got hundreds of ferrules here, so I'm just going to try a few just to see whether, I mean, that's a similar size to the existing one, which for me is too big. I don't like that. So I'm going to try and find one slightly smaller. It's always important to have sort of lots of different sizes of ferrules, because as we know, club heads are all different. So are shafts. Can't find one I like at the moment. Could go purple. We've got some purple ones here that we keep threatening to use. Oh, helps if you can see it, maybe a bit too purple. So I've got the Aerodite here. It's a slow dry, and I feel that sticks better than the Rapid. You can use Rapid, I've seen people use that. So you just mix a generous amount of that. It sort of takes sort of 4 or 5 hours before it starts to really bond, and then after that you've probably got another 6-7 hours before it fully sets. I generally leave it overnight, give it a full sort of 12 hours. So just spread it on here. It doesn't have to be too thick either. Just make sure you cover all the abrasive areas, and any additional glue, we just put it sort of down the hosel, and then I'm just going to work it down as so. Just going to line it up. So I could remove the grip, but the grip's still in good condition. Just going to wipe, because I don't need any more glue, I'm just going to wipe the excess glue off here, and then I'm just going to give it a little ram onto the ground just to make sure we drive it in fully. Apologies for the mess. Just make sure that's down. One final check, I'm just going to line the grip up with the club head at address. So we're happy with that. Worst case scenario, we can take the grip off, but don't really want to do that. And finally, we're just going to leave it to dry. pop it against the wall like that, and then leave it to dry for, well, overnight, and then we'll have a look at it tomorrow to see what it's actually turned out like. Do a few final checks to make sure that it's all nicely glued and ready to play, which it will get its first outing tomorrow. Thanks for watching the video. Just showing you how we've made a new wedge, and one which we're going to put into the bag. Hopefully that additional bounce will help me. I've been chipping really well with the 50 and 54 degree wedges and feel comfortable with them, and they've got a lot more bounce at 10 and 14. So by putting in another high bounce wedge, hopefully that's going to give me a bit more confidence, and also a slightly bigger club face and sole plate will also give me that little bit of confidence I feel that I'm lacking at the moment in the most lofted club in the bag.